coming out tonight to Malvern Books. If this is your first time here, we are an independent bookstore we've been open for almost 3 years. We have poetry, fiction on that side. We specialize in literature and translation, and we only carry books from independent presses. We're very excited to have two esteemed writers and poets here tonight, and we're going to start with Kurt Wilson. Kurt Wilson's poetry chapbook, The Early Word, was published by Keith and Rosemary Waldrop at Burning Deck Press. His recent work has appeared in Confrontation, Eclipse, Folly, Meridian, and elsewhere. Kurt's true crime classic, Unsolved, an investigation into 10 high-profile murders, has been published in 6 editions in the US and UK. Ladies and gentlemen, Kurt Wilson.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to James for inviting me to be here. We're here to celebrate the launch of his book. So everybody buy one. Buy some more stuff while you're here too. Because we're in Malvern Books, which does great things for Boston writers. So if you don't know about it, your first time here, well, it's a great place to come back to. I'm going to read some poems and a few little prosy things. And the first poem is called The Visit. I often think you are only away, and while you are gone, it is my work to live for you in all that presents itself here. I must gnaw the tasty bits hidden in the sharp nest of the bones, and listen mornings to the doves, whose messages are no less urgent for being soft, and wonder where the light is going. A certain day has gone away with you when I have risen as your child. I cannot hear what may have happened in the night. The stones of words may have been thrown against the glass display case of a soul, or hard news may have come. But one thing certain is that outside the house, the animals were hunkered down within great wonderments of rain that came seldom to that country we all would leave. Come that baptized morning, we put on our better clothes and drove off to a visit. The rain too was traveling to places where the land would love to see it coming, would rejoice in its touch. Strange, along our way came dips in the road, like sculpted riverbeds, as if the land had formed them with a purpose, as if it wished to make the rain feel welcome. For water rushed to the beds and filled them so full they offered to drown the travelers along their road, should any wish to go farther in this life. And we could not pass, and we turned back, only to find the riverbed behind us had meanwhile accepted the rain into its body and was busy rejoicing, and we were trapped as though between one life and another. We waited in the car. I cannot hear what we discussed, but I can taste the crackers and sardines we shared, and I can smell the rain. So while we're in the water, this is called The Drowned Boy. The war has grown old, but is blessed, in children prodigious with seed, cast far and close as the scorpion's tail. News of the empire is slow to reach in exile. I fear a horizon is crossed unannounced, and a settling of wings awaits its time. Meanwhile, what can the gods really want when even the robots are hungry? How can they ask me again to interpret the dead? Their indifference is one thing that belongs to me. The weight of them is not weight, but the child of its idea. I rejoice to have my reenactment. Even my sins are not original. Even my fate, the way it tries to keep its sex quiet in the shadows. I am in every moment on the precipice of that bright day, looking down from the dock on the hippo who was once a drowned boy. I hear again the single note of birdsong, and behind the note, the word, and behind the word, the question. This is kind of a warm-up for James because James is going to be giving us correspondence. And this is an encyclical. As far as I know, an encyclical is a letter that the Pope writes. Is that right, James? James knows about these things. And so I guess the Pope is the speaker here. The poem is called Encyclical on the Disappearance of Light. Just on the other side of the wall, the Minotaur is lost. While on our side, a possibly infinite strand of poisoned words that cause mutations has been discovered in the streets. This is the whole truth and nothing but. The problem is the sun is mired below the horizon, and light is evidently being drawn from the world as though retreating. A task force will be assembled, I'm certain. Meanwhile, imagine the emptiness of the Minotaur no longer lying in wait, and offer prayers that he may find his way. All things are possible. Take heart. Death has never failed to speak its language, and we are sure to be rewarded with the gift of death's own lexicon, which we will find familiar and useful even in the dark. I used to write about crime, and one of the crime stories I wrote about is the death of Marilyn Monroe. I considered it a crime because I decided it was a murder. And so I spent, this was years ago, a number of months in Marilyn's life and in her death. And just recently ran across her again. So this poem is called Marilyn. It is another way of being faithful, how I hold you through plate glass, just the two of us in that lost town. A madman stops and points, tries to tell us what he knows about the danger clear and present. But you are bending at the waist across a parapet, and there is no fear in your regard of capstone phalli reaching up for you forever, one cloud's distance from New York. I was late to the party, didn't fall in love until the 80s, till when we stayed up all night writing how you took the mob, the Kennedys, took us all between your legs and kept us safe in our illusions, kept us from all the mad ones know, and never set us free. Behind the glass, your ass, your smile arise in classic symmetry. In your hand, a cigarette that can't kill you. In your future, Limbutol and chloral hydrate that can't kill you. All the hard-ons in New York can't kill you. No one lives in photographs so well as you. This is a shorty. It's called Mr. Savage. Call Mr. Savage, she says. The exterminator? She gives me a look like, who else? Did you see a bug? Death, she says. It's in the floorboards. We're infested. She's gone, they say. Mr. Savage comes and sprays. The whole place smells like DDT. Another shorty. Still Life. All these other poems were pretty new ones. This one's a little older. It's been reworked recently. Still Life. We woke up naked as grapes. We lifted the blinds, and there was the luminous world. Some tiny portion of it living, and the rest of it dead. And all of it there in the window to reach for, with the stems of words into the stillborn space we feed between ourselves. For what is beautiful about a stem beyond the poem of its function? And what can you mean outside that comfort of your own so thickly thin, so gorgeous in the light, so wine dark skin? Read a couple of prosy things. This one, it's called The Next Life of the Duke of Bourbon. Back in the 18th century, toward the end of his life, the Duke of Bourbon realized that he would be reincarnated as a horse. And so he commissioned the building of a palatial stables. It's still there. You can go there and see it. And now there's a place called the Museum of the Horse there. In Chantilly. Help me with my French. Chantilly. The Next Life of the Duke of Bourbon. It was more thrilling than anything that had happened when he was a human. He emerged from his dam with the front hooves extended and the noble face following as if he were flying. He thought he would not survive the terrible squeezing and the smothering impulse to breathe, and all he saw ahead was a whitish blur. He was half tugged, half thrown onto a shore. Hands came in, attendants clearing off the filmy sack that covered him, peeling it from his nostrils and his eyes, shaking it off of their fingers. Someone said, "Bonjour," in a soft, baby-talking voice. The first breath, the invocation, flowed in. Dust, fermented chlorophyll, a spore of distance. They had turned him around, pulling him as he flew, and through a mist, he watched the mountains of his dam revolving, drawing in and heaving out a gale. The first thing that came to focus was her sex, dilated and cardinal, a bit of hay stuck against it, a rolling topography of hay between them. He came with a word stuck inside him, like the hay, Chantilly. The word was all the Duke remembered. And now new memories rushed in, swamping the word, so that it lived only on the floor of a deep lake inside, inaccessible but safe there, in safe keeping. The waters were a mystery. The Duke had walked, tall and stooped, not alive, into a cave, or it had swallowed him, and in the depths he first sensed the dark and roiling waters with the noxious smell. He heard the barking of a pack of dogs and felt the light, the almost light of a night forest under clouds surround and soak him and make him cold. He passed an elm with visions written on its leaves and reached a shore where a filthy, quarrelsome old man stood poling a long boat. A common crowd pressed in on him that could not be seen. Had they treated him with deference, those invisible ones? Had he been Louis Henri, Duke of Bourbon, Prince of Condé, to them? The tour guide offered him a drink. He could choose one of the two waters there before him, but could not have them both. He drank from the river that caused him to forget everything about having been the Duke. The option, a bright pool, would have caused remembering and resulted in omniscience. The Duke chose forgetting because omniscience seemed like too much trouble. But he remembers nothing of that. He struggled, stood upright an instant, stumbled, came up again, looked down on the range of his dam from a high peak. Soon enough, he had the trick of his long-limbed bearing. He tried a stamp, and then a kick. At first, the walls of the vast stables reared and pitched around him. But as they settled, he could sense the gathering of his great power. This last thing I'll read is, again, prosy. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm working on it now. It's a story, memoir, or essay or something. But what I'm trying to do is to talk about a place in which things happen in different times and people come and go at different times. And the people of those times talk to one another across time. So that it's a kind of a time outside time that they're meeting in. It's called, the working title is called Secrets of Kirby Hall. Mendelssohn rotates in relaxed 360s down a sharp decline on the spine of a rain-greased street. He is an ancient Simca, once the color of an old man's tooth and now resembling putty. His tires are shaved bald, his passenger door secured with a twisted coat hanger. Seen from above by a red-tailed hawk who will not live long past 1966, he is a cartoon, manufactured by a bored and idle god. The slow-mo way he spins is entertaining. The way he tracks the one true line down the middle of the road, never varying the distance between his epicenter and the hill-long line of shark-finned and predator-grilled sedans twice his size at the curbside, is impossible. Thus the cartoon, thus the god. He pirouettes one final time and begins a gentle sideways skid into the slot reserved for him between two resting hulks of metal. The space between bumpers could not be better proportioned. He does not touch the curb. The sound of his engine, a washer musical with asthma, comes to the fore. Like his namesake, Mendelssohn is an incurable romantic. I must know what became of him, but the memory is merciful and hides from me. I thank him aloud before I let him sleep. The western wing of Kirby Hall up on a rise fills up his driver's window. I have not reached my destination, but do not think I will drive any further today. I open up Mendelssohn's door. I cannot offer you the place or the times. As a stand-in, I offer this fabric to hold up to your face, thin as it is, abused and worn and subject to every distraction. Nothing that will last. To look through at the place and times that may have been there. To make things simple, there is always sunlight. This particular sunlight is meaningless until it runs up against something. It needs resistance. My aunt resides in Kirby Hall in 1925, pursuing her undergraduate studies. There is no point in entering the lobby to ask for her because she is not here at present. But she is on the way. As I round the front of the building, she arrives on the back of an Indian motorbike driven by a man named Sled, a poet and an agnostic in knickers and tall argyle socks. He is her forbidden love. Her arms wrap up his ribs and her legs stretch forward onto the Indian's pegs, as though the three of them, she and the poet and the Indian, are one roaring thing on wheels. She dismounts, shakes out her hair, and walks toward me, moving like the happy girl she is, more glamorous than she will ever be again. You look well, I say. Tell me about it. Aren't you the guy who claims that true poem can't be discussed? She says. Give me a break. I am full of myself, I know. We write it everywhere. She does not introduce me to her companion, who has not dismounted. Are you lovers? I ask. She pretends not to have heard. My impertinence deserves it. I can't say if we are together on one side of the river or the other. Neither of us really has a body here. We are a map of continents. Impossible to tell that we're holding things in place or pushing them away. Mendelssohn's namesake wanted death to be a place where there is still music, but no more sorrow or partings.